The work session for Hillsboro School District 1J is now in order. Our first agenda item is to meet with our Black Village Family Advisory Committee. We've had a chance to have a little dinner together. Thank you guys for being here. I think we have a presentation. And Francesca, do you lead us off?
Yes. Thank you. And good evening to everyone. I am pleased and honored to be here in partnership with our Black Village Family Advisory Committee. We have with us Olson Miller, who is our current Vice Chair of the Black Village Family Advisory Committee. We also have two of our education liaisons who support many things, but in particular our Black Village. We do have another member who unfortunately had a last-minute emergency and wasn't able to make it today, but Olson's going to take it and run with it with the support of the ladies. So thank you very much for having us here, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Thanks, Fran.
Two clickers. Thank you all for being here today. Nice to have y'all. Thanks for having us. As for our agenda today, we'll start with going over our board and our district support. Then we'll move into our previous events, talk about some upcoming events, go through our considerations, and then open the floor for questions.
Hello, thank you for having us again. Thank you for the dinner. We'll start with a mission statement. The Black Village Family Advisory Committee advocates for the needs of students and families of students who identify in whole or in part as Black, African American, or African attending Hillsboro School District schools. Our board and district support team is Saray Files, the Black Village Chair, Olson Miller with us now as the Vice Chair, Deja Pickering as the Secondary Schools Educational Liaison, and I, Jelana Canfield, Elementary School Educational Liaisons. A little bit more about our positions.
Yeah, a little bit about our roles. So as Jelana mentioned, my name is Deja Pickering. I serve at the secondary school level, so middle schools and high schools. And in my role as an educational liaison, it looks like twofold. So the first fold of it is student engagement. So what that looks like, I work closely with the Black Student Unions, BSUs, and I support with their activities, programming, opportunities. My support can look as big as taking students on school trips like to the Seattle Black College Expo, or even as small as just weekly BSU meeting operations. And then on the family engagement side, I work closely in collaboration with the Black Village to create events for our families of students who identify as Black, African American, and African. So that looks like doing events that are specific to families, doing events for students, and doing events for the community.
And also, I'd like to give a little bit about your background.
Man. All right, I knew I was going to talk, but man, you guys gave me pasta, and now I'm like slowing down. Right. So my name is Olson Miller. I have to remember, nope, I no longer work for the district, but I did for about 16 years as a 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teacher. So, experience within the district, and also I'm a parent of two. One is a Liberty freshman, and another one that's in 5th grade at Lenox. So, very quickly about myself is the fact that I'm a parent. I think, of all the different parts of my identity, being a parent is the biggest part when it comes to, the fact that I will advocate and fight for my children. And because of that, I also see it as a village. Something about myself is, I'm from a village myself. I was born on an island, and, where I got spanked by people in the neighborhood. I got, women up the street, down the street. The village took care of each other. And that's one of the big draws about being a part of the Black Village is we care for each other. And, we advocate for all kids that are our Black identified children like they're our own. And by default, if we try to advocate for our most marginalized, it's like the curb cut. We then take care of all children. And that's basically a quick tell about me.
Hello. My background is my position as educational liaison. I advocate and support families. Of course, as a district employee, we advocate for all of our families and students, but with an emphasis on elementary Black, African, and African American students. I have a two-part position, along with being a family and student advocate. I also am an educational liaison for recess support, help bridge elementary schools and their recess leads and administrators with the support of Jennifer Williams and Fran with the PlayWorks module and supporting cell learning on the playground. I'm also a parent of a HSD student. My son goes to South Meadows. He started at Witch Hazel in kindergarten. So I'm very passionate about the work I do, not only as a fellow team member, but as a parent. And also why I look forward to being engaged and supporting the Black Village. I'm also a founding member, along with Nancy Thomas, John Allen, and Travis. Also to my Cherry that works here, David, who now works here too. So we've all been so passionate about HSD. We started at the village and now a lot of us work here. So I look forward to helping Saray and Olson on this side.
And I will say Saray intended to be here, but unfortunately, duties as a mom, came first, and she last minute had to take care of some other things.
Now we'll pass it off to you, Olson.
Okay. Oops, you went too far.
There we go.
All right. She's trying to rush me through because last time I was here, I think we got through like 2 or 3 slides in an hour. So, the Black Village, we can't do this alone, but a lot of the things that we've done so far, kind of like what's listed, the Pointer Middle School Family Event in which we had our guest presentations from the extracurricular activity department. We had the tech services, we had family engagement and also health services. When we had our in-person, it was a packed house. So we're looking forward to as many of those as possible. We had the IEP and 504 plan workshop in which we had guest speakers from student services and student services for that. We have, if you look at the picture there, we have pictured, the awesome group of kids and families that went to the, was it in Seattle? I'm trying to think. Yep, went to the Black College Expo in Seattle. And that was the second time. The first time they went was last year, and it was such an awesome experience for them. So 12 schools organizations are represented. We have 2 workshops. We have the FAFSA 101, which is, we all know if we went to college, we really need to figure out how to afford to get there. So having that one workshop was pretty good. And the Common Apps 101. We have over 40 students and parents who attended our last event, and we're hoping to continue that trend of families attending. Let's see, the Black Village purchased scholarships and scholarship essay write-in books for students from a Black-owned local bookstore. I believe it's the, is it Third Eye? Third Eye Bookstore. I gotta start a bookstore because then I'd have 2 in this. Like, there's only 1, so let's make sure we support that. Invited financial literacy guest speakers. We also had the Black Educators presentations. Teachers Connect, Diverse Educator Pathways, and ORABC, Oregon Alliance of Black School Educators. We have Mr. Titonian Williams from the Black Advisory Business Council. They gave a presentation about, the Black Advisory Business Council Scholarship Fund. We also had the Brookwood Library book reading, in which we had students and volunteers reading picture books for our little ones, and we also collaborated with the Pointer Middle School for that. So that was looking in the past. Now we're looking forward to future events. I expect to see everyone in this room at our braided narratives, our Black History event that's going to be at South Meadows on the 22nd. That's next week, Thursday, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Make sure you scan the QR code and register, because if you're not scanning and registered, we're not going to have enough food for you. Now, I'm kidding. We're probably going to have food, but it helps us to know who's going to be there if you scan and register. All right. So, and for that one, we are honored to have Dr. Charlene Williams, our director of Oregon Education Department there. Just a phenomenal individual to be there as our very first Black and female superintendent, director ever in Oregon history. That's kind of cool to know, since tomorrow is Oregon's birthday. So if you don't do Valentine's, say, hey, happy Oregon's birthday. We have our monthly planning focus, that is school programs for wellness and wellness workshop that's going to be coming up. We have discipline and restorative practices coming up. We have the end of year celebration, of course, and Juneteenth. Some of these are to be determined, the dates, but I'm suspecting Juneteenth is going to be close to Juneteenth. All right, considerations. For this, we want to focus our goals. So Hillsboro and the Black Village Family Advisory Committee, we're going to be committed to building capacity, and that's going to be around recruitment, marketing, the bridging communication, and collect and share targeted data. All right, so recruitment. We're going to continue to support the recruitment efforts. That's the flyers, email blast, remind. We're going to send out messages and reminders to the Black families with a recording. We're hoping to use the voices of our liaisons, and the importance of that is hearing the robocalls. It doesn't have the same culturally responsive approach as to hear a voice, and especially a voice of someone who's part of the village. Mm-hmm. And it does matter how we can call individuals into the community. Let's see, bring voice and resonance to Black identified staff members. As someone who was a staff member in this district for about 16 years, I can tell you it matters. It matters a lot to staff members that they are seen, heard, and know that the value of them choosing to be in Hillsboro School District, it's important. What's that?
Could I add something to that?
Oh, absolutely.
So, and part of our mission to do that is the Black Village has partnered with us and signed a grant with North Clackamas ESD and North Clackamas School District. And in that grant, it just started up in this last couple of weeks. With their partnership and signing off on it, we're able to bring in a company called Brilliant Conversations. And they're meeting currently right now with our Black identifying classified staff members to gather information. And this is in partnership, my partnership with HR, to gather in that information of what would help to make them feel like belonging was an automatic in our district. What things can we learn from in their experiences? And that was due to the partnership that the Black Village has with us to be able to sign off on that grant. So I wanted to give you guys props for that.
Thank you. Let's see. Also, just building on recruitment, it'll be a positive impact on the sustainability of the Black Village. We know that, one day some of us will not be, directly attached to the village. Our kids will graduate, and that means we should always have the community growing so that it doesn't, we don't lose it. Because right now, I know that we represent, 540 something Black students in the district, but I'm hoping that number grows, and we always want to have someone that takes care of our village. Okay, for marketing, making improved marketing efforts, the Black Village and the Hillsboro School District, we're talking about higher distributions. A lot of times, the flyers may not necessarily make it in the hands of the kids or make it out of their backpacks. So we want to think about better ways of making sure that happens. That means also addressing it at the school level. Having the reminds, because I know I received I'm at Liberty, I'm at at the district level, I'm at the Lennox level, but what I don't see is always the reminds about the village meetings and stuff at the school level. So that would be one of the things that we're asking for, to kind of make sure that happens at the school level, so that's again the culturally responsive approach of the teacher, the principals. They have those relationships with the families, and we'd like to use that a little bit more effectively. Improved efforts in the partnership with the village and district when it comes to updating our website. Talking about the photos, some of them were stock photos for a while. And, that means we need to make sure we take a lot of pictures so that we can get on there and put the information up. All right. So another area is the bridging our communication. We're talking about bridge communication between the school district and families. We know that that is a high priority, to make sure that we're hearing from the families. But I think the village, we can bridge that space by being a go-between, and that's a valuable asset. Personnel change when needed. Sometimes, we're the last to know because we're outside of the system, and that's also part of the letting us know when things are happening. If it means personnel, as in who's the counselor, who's not the counselor, who's thank goodness we know these two individuals here that when they are in those positions, but it's also good to know who else is in different spaces. Meeting with district personnel beyond the Black Village work. We're not just about the village. We're also, the work that we do are curb cuts, and I'm always going to keep talking about curb cuts because I'm an instructional coach for early learning and special education. So I will say curb cuts are something that everyone benefits from. So when we, as a village, work with parents and families, we're trying to benefit all kids, all families. Requesting time and space to meet with the principals. We feel that when the principals have meetings, if the village could have that time to say, hey, put a face to that flyer, put a face to the efforts, it may make a difference. And we know that there's multiple or different types of meetings. So we're not saying all the meetings, but give us a little face time so that when they see that flyer show up, they're like, oh yeah. And making sure that it doesn't stay on the front desk or something like that. Let's see, collect and share targeted data. We have support with researching the Black Village needs and collecting data. And one of the interesting ways that that will happen, and it's not happening yet, but it will happen, is using empathy interviews and story circles to hear the new voices, to amplify them. And, empathy interviews are something that's commonly used. What's not is necessarily story circles, which is something that was created by Rose McGee, and I myself trained in using story circles and participate in them, where it's one thing to just collect your quantitative data, but the qualitative data of hearing the stories of those individuals in a circle is really powerful, and it's something that I highly encourage board members and the leadership to do with not just each other, but with individuals from different spaces. It really does help you to in a space where there's psychological safety, to just be open and share. It really does something for learning more about different perspectives. And then we have finally, it was a shared data on staff participations on culturally responsive professional development. Something that I'm always going to promote is we need more education. We have staff that, we tell them they need to be culturally responsive, but if we don't train them on what that means, it really isn't a successful venture. Okay, I'm not going to say it now. Thank you. Thank you for the time. Any questions?
Questions, comments from my colleagues? Here, and I did just add the event to my calendar.
Awesome.
It's just the same one we had last year at Liberty. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think next year I'm going to ask that we use the Hillsboro Stadium. Saying could go bigger.
Sorry, I was waiting to hear all of this, but thank you.
We forgive you since you're one of the founding members.
Other questions? Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thanks for spending some time with us. We always love our presentations from the PAC committee, so it's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Oh, yeah.
Together the community. Looking forward to the Black History.
They do a lot more of the work than I do. I need to be honest, this past year or so, I've been almost MIA in some of them because, you know, I work at Northwest Regional and we've been contract bargaining over a year now. So that's been something that's drawn me away from this work, but it's something that I hope ends soon because the village needs more of our folks and time. Is that it?
Well, I was just going to point out, there's only the chair and the vice chair, as you notice in the slide, for the board. So recruitment is very important. And it really starts with kind of how we all reach out and support families because they'll be more likely to want to not only be members, but be a part of the Black Village Board, knowing that HSD is fully supportive of the work that the village does. So these two have carried a lot, so thank you to you and Saray.
Well, it's kind of a situation where your parents and a member of staff, you can't or shouldn't serve on the board as well?
We've had some tricky parts with that, so we've gone back and like last year, David was on a parent and on it. So they've restructured some of the bylaws because you can rewrite the bylaws to make it work for this position. And now we have another one. We just keep finding the parents that want to be involved. And so we're looking at the bylaws right now to make sure they align, but typically in the past, we don't have an employee be on it, but we made that exception last year and wrote it into our meeting notes because of David serving in both roles.
And we did say if there was a conflict, that individual just excuse himself from vote. And, you know, that's just kind of keeping it to where if there is a conflict. You know, it was one of those cases where I think for our village, it's important that we do grow. We just, you know, we need to grow because if we don't, you know, the attrition will disappear. And I think there's a value to why we were started in the first place, why we need to continue to exist, because our numbers are growing. But also what we see is, you know, historical data kind of is somewhat stagnant for our children sometimes. And we need to see what's the cause, the root cause, and let's make some change in that way.
With my position, we recently did a new count, and if you include multiracial, African American, and Black, who the parents mark that as their affinity marker, we are close to 2,300 now. So we need support.
That's a little bit bigger than 500 or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
my girl
that's
qualifies that.
the importance of what the PAC does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can stay if you want, but you don't have to.
I got another school board that needs to see.
Our next agenda item is one of our favorite discussions. Stuff to hand out?
I sure do.
You might.
Actually, I've already taken care of that, so I'm just also affording Shannon Patrick access to the calendar. I'll be sending them a little message with some accompanying access to that. So thank you for coming together to talk about the calendar. we are going to move to a conversation that is a post-Labor Day conversation for a one-year calendar. And so tonight, I'd like to do a similar activity we've done in the past where we have folks come together in small groups, have conversation, and look at two drafts that we've brought together. I do want to say that we've also shared these drafts with our union partners, HCU and HEA, and we've also shared it with our PK-12 admin today during our meeting. And so we've got some input from those folks on kind of key choices. So I'm going to have you break up into groups, but because the people are online, we're going to do a little bit of adjustment for groups. And so group one, I would like to have, since Erica's absent, and so is RJ, I would have Beth, Jordan, Francesca, and Yvette come together. And then you guys can make a little space, kind of maybe over here. And then group two would be Nancy, Audria, Michelle, and Hadley is absent, so you guys want to find space. And then group three will be Mark, Monique, Saide, Alina, and Travis coming together. And then we won't have a group four. So you're going to have a chance to look at some information. So I'm going to let you go ahead and move to your areas, and then we'll have a little conversation about what we're hoping to accomplish tonight.
Maybe leave the video on but mute, so that's...
Observances and staff. So our purpose today is to look at the two drafts, get some feedback, and then just kind of determine where we're going to be going in regards to those, so that I can come on the 27th in about 2 weeks and give you an opportunity to look at a calendar draft that you've seen here tonight, and also our union partners and our administrators have seen as well. And hopefully our target would be to vote on March 12th. So it's a short turnaround, but I know that you can do this excellently. So if you look at the two calendars, calendar one, I would consider your draft A option. And so now you can flip to the other side of your one pager that I shared with you, and that will kind of give you your options of what we're looking at. Calendar one, you have this in front of you at the top of your little area, and then down below on the left-hand side, you're going to have calendar one, and on the right side, you're going to have calendar two. So calendar one and calendar two both have Family Connections Day on Wednesday, August 28th. We heard from our families and our staff that they wanted to continue that, and so we're bringing that forward, and that would be considered a student contact day. So if you were kind of thinking about this year, we had that on a Friday, but we've moved it to a Wednesday because we want to be able to have a bridge of time to kind of continue into supporting our families that are in need. So at the beginning of August, on the 19th through the 21st, would be our normal new licensed in-service. Then the 26th and the 27th become in-service. The 28th is Family Connection on calendar one. Thursday is also an in-service day, and so is Friday. So those are the 4 days that lie within the contract, and we would be following those contractual obligations. And then you go into September, just like we have done this year. We started school with our 1st through 6th graders, our 7th and 9th graders, and then we would start with all kids on Wednesday. And at the end of the year, you can see that we would be ending school on Wednesday the 11th, and with our educators and licensed staff, it would be their last day on the 12th. So that's calendar one. Calendar two is something a little bit different. So part of the impetus for creating the second calendar was that we've received feedback from our classified staff that they want some more PD time. And so this calendar affords that, and also affords our licensed staff to work in collaboration with our classified staff because of the way the start of the year begins. So you can see the 19th through the 21st is, again, our new licensed in service. The 26th and the 27th are similar to calendar one for in service for all staff, licensed staff. The 28th is the Family Connections. The 29th is in service. This is where there's a little change. The 30th becomes a non-contract day for licensed staff. And historically, we've had that day as a non-contract day for our licensed staff, except post-pandemic, we've had that as a work day based on the schedule for our family connections. So since we moved that over, if you look down into September, you're going to see that Tuesday, September 3rd is not a school day. It now becomes the in-service day for our licensed staff and also for our classified staff. So something that Michelle and I had a conversation about was that we want to make sure that our classified staff around the area of educational assistance, special education assistance, campus security, family liaisons, their calendar would afford them to work Wednesday, the 28th of August, Thursday, the 29th of August, and now if we did calendar 2, it would be Tuesday, the 3rd. So it just adds some extra time for them to do the scope of the work with Family Connections and also have time to work with their licensed colleagues. And then the end of the school year would be the 12th for our second calendar for students and the 13th for our educators. So I'd like you to have a discussion now on which calendar you'd like to. I will also say that in conversations with our union partners, they have leaned towards calendar 2. Our conversations with our admin have leaned towards calendar 2, and in part, it's because of that extra time for our classified staff to support the work that we need to do, and also to have some time to conversate and plan for the year with their licensed colleagues. So, those of you that have been on this conversation about calendar with me, my cabinet colleagues, I say thank you for being here tonight and helping facilitate the smaller group conversations. And then our online folks, if you could just look at the calendars and then give any feedback that you may have regarding the 2 calendars. All right, I will go ahead and let you have your conversation. Large groups, there was typically 1 or maybe 2 folks or a group that would want to have one calendar over the other, and then the majority would like this particular calendar, and that's the joy of calendars. You know, not everyone is going to love every component of it, and you know, we have had folks that have loved the pre-Labor Day, and there are folks that don't like the pre-Labor Day, but I think there's a lot of learnings that we've had through those discussions to try to remedy and come towards this space and this time right now, and we know that our community and our staff are wanting to know what the calendar is going to be like, and I think as Mark shared during our last board meeting, he's forthcoming having a committee of some kind to kind of address and talk about some of these things. And so we will have board members on that committee to help support that work. And I think it'll be great because also understanding like all of the layers, you're seeing something that is composed here that takes many iterations and counting of days and all kinds of things, create a calendar that you can look at today. So I just wanted to get a sense of kind of like what each of the groups are kind of thinking. I kick us off?
Share, do you want to share our, what? Oh, share,
Can I kick us off?
Yeah, we were group 1. And thank you. They really explained it into more detail of like why we decided, well, I think we mostly agreed on calendar B, right? Yeah, because it's they have that the Monday off and then that license day for teachers, which makes sense. You know, they'll come in and they have that one day to get ready for students to come in versus like that Monday off and then boom, school starts. And so from what they were telling me about the feedback that they were getting from, you know, parents and principals and all of that, it just makes more sense. And that getting that Friday off or, yeah, that's what we just
off. Group 2? Sure. I don't know what it was. Group 2 was Nancy.
That is us. Yes. Thank you.
And
we, similar to Yvette, we leaned towards draft 2 with the Friday non-contract. Talked about just the ease into the week and honoring the non-contract that occurred on Friday, typically pre-pandemic. Group 3.
Good to me. All right. I don't know that we got.
Collecting all the papers after.
Oh, sure. I don't know that we got to a preference, but we didn't really talk that far, but it feels like probably 2. All our questions were answered. In our previous experience, I guess we know that fairly vocal portion of our stakeholder community does not like changing the calendar, and 2 represents the closest proximity to what we've had in the past here. So.
Monique and Patrick and Jen, do you guys have anything to add that you wanted to make sure that were able to capture tonight?
I was part of Mark's group. I don't have anything right now. I'm still
Processing.
yeah.
Patrick?
Good evening. No, I don't have a strong preference between the calendars. I think that most of the constituent feedback we got from the draft from a couple of months ago, neither one seems to be much different on some of the key metrics that the constituents were concerned about. So I think whichever one the leadership team and our union partners who are talking to the frontline staff feel is most advisable, I'd be happy to support.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, I echo Patrick's comments as well. I'm also a little indifferent, I think, on either of the versions, but if union partnership and admin is feeling strongly about one way or another, I'm happy to support that.
So much.
And we would put version 2 on first reading.
The 27th.
At the next board meeting. And since we only have one board meeting in March, we would be adopting it in March.
I think our community would really appreciate that too.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
I will collect all the papers. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions that I can answer. Or if you have other thoughts that I might not be thinking about, happy to hear those too.
Definitely not the last time we will discuss a calendar during our work.
Mark, I've learned that.
Our next agenda item is to discuss graduation dates or graduation great updates, and we have David with us today too as well.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to give you a graduation update. In one of your board updates, back at the last week of January, we did give you the press release and the documentation of all of our rates, but we thought we would highlight a presentation with you just to give you an overall look. We do this every year, and just wanted to give you an overall picture of our graduation update. So if we can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to remind everybody, this is our data from the class of 2023 last year, and kind of just wanted to remind everybody of what their 4 years in high school looked at like. Their freshman year was our March closure, and this is where we did task plans for the second half of their 9th grade year. Their sophomore year was distance learning with hybrid that did occur the latter part of the year. Their junior year was a return to school, which was a very challenging return to school as we came back from the pandemic and a lot of rules and things that we had to follow. So it was definitely a lot happening, and COVID was still happening as well during that time. So it was very challenging. Even though we were back at school and grateful to be back, it was definitely a challenging year. And then their senior year, which was last year, would probably be what I would say a typical high school year for students. It felt much better last year. It felt good in our schools. We were starting to really get back to the practices that we had done pre-pandemic in person with extra practices that we had learned during our time in the pandemic to improve learning. So just kind of wanted to anchor you to what their 4 years looked like with us, which were each very different and unique. Go to the next slide. This is to let you know, at the start of the school year for the class of 23, so this would be in September of 2022, this is how they came into us at that point, at the beginning of their senior year. Just a reminder too, we use HSD's model for On Track. ODE uses a different model for their On Track. We say for our students to be on track their senior year, they need 18 total credits, 14.5 of which are in core credits, and then including PE and health and applied arts, world language, or CTE. So our standard is a little bit higher than ODE standard. So if you were to compare this data to ODE, ODE would say we had more kids on track, but again, we really focus on making sure we have core credits that our students have those. So just so you know. At the start of the year, we had 32% that were off track to graduate at that time. And we did a lot of work over the course of 22-23 to make sure we had students cross the finish line. So if you go to the next slide, this gives an overall look of our 4 comprehensive high schools and our online school, and then HSD overall. What you'll see from this data is that we saw some drops in some areas, but overall we did hold in pretty closely to our grad rate from 2022. So in 2022 we were 86.27. In 2020, I'm sorry. You're right. Yes, I'm right. There we go. I need to look to the left. In 2023 we were at 86.19. So we had a small dip of 0.09% or 0.09% is where we dipped. We are still above the state average, and the state also held pretty much to the same rate for 2022 and 2023. So a highlight in there as well that I want to just note is the cohort completer for the 5th year group of the class of 2022. We did crest 90%. I think I've always reminded folks this is why we have the Pathway Center and Oak Street campus. Students may not graduate in 4 years, but we do not stop after 4 years with our students. And I think what's really a great testament to our Pathways work and the work that Amy Torres and her staff are doing over there is we find these kids and we get them across the finish line. We actually just had recently a 7th year grad, and that is okay. We will take that. Now, it might not count in a number somewhere, but that student got their high school diploma, and they have doors open for them regardless if it was in 4 years or in 7. So we know that there was impacts of the pandemic that we are still working through, but we feel really good that we are back to our pre-pandemic rate, and we are holding, and we are really looking forward to what we can do in the future. I'm going to turn it over to David, and I'm going to introduce David to you all. This is David Mizlanik. As you know, they had Audrey and Neville overseeing high schools for the last 6 months of the year last year, and that was a fun job to have while also being the assistant superintendent. We got to hire David from the school district next door, he has been an experienced high school principal at Southbridge, and we are just super excited to have him here. I am really excited to have him here as well, and he has been doing some great work, and so I wanted an opportunity for him while he was not here last year. This is work that he will be continuing in his role in school board work. So we'll just kick to the next slide.
Thank you for that introduction. I was going to introduce myself, but it's good to be here and be good. It's good to be part of the Hillsboro team and be part of this community and work to meet the needs of our students and our families as we move forward. On this slide, I'd like to really lean into the first green bar, the class of 2019, and the last green bar, the class of 2023, and just look at the comparison there between the pre-pandemic class and then the class from last year, and the work that is happening in the buildings to support students. And then if you kind of were to trace backwards over the last 5 years, those green bars, you can kind of see that we're getting to where we were before, and the work is evident in the buildings and how that looks. If you look in comparison to the state are the blue bars compared. So going to the next slide. As we transition into the next slide here, I want to dig deeper into the focal group comparisons. These would be the focal groups that we're really highlighting in our strategic plan. We're highlighting the support across the district and really looking at some of the historically underserved races over time. And I'm going to be focusing in on the delta change column, which is going to be the 5th column over, so the second shaded column, and going down, starting at the bottom with the Black African American population. What we notice in that bar right there is an increase of performance, 7.24% change compared to the 2022 grad rate. Just an indicative piece of the work and the partnerships that we have meeting the needs of students. Also in that same column, looking at English language learners, 4.75% delta change. At the same time, moving to the top, students with disabilities, the 3.97. As we look at that graph, also it's important to notice that some subgroup populations have fewer numbers than others. So 1 or 2 students directly impact percentage change over time, and it's really important to recognize that. But this chart just really highlights some of the successes we saw with last year's graduating class. So going on to the...
Do you know what the Black African American, they like said, so a few students can make a difference. Is that based on more the 534 number Olson used or the 2300 number?
It would be the 534 that Olson used, yeah, because it would be self-identified data. So as the students and families self-identify.
A category that we don't have up here listed as one of them is multiracial, which is its own separate category. So I think some of the students that Joanna was talking about are under the multiracial category.
That would have been for all grades too, right?
Yes.
Not graduating seniors.
It would have been K-12.
Number is
Probably
much.
True. Yes, that is accurate as well.
Right.
The students with disabilities, does that include the children with IT? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So as we go to the next slide, kind of looking at the same information through a different lens, some highlights and notes for us. In our underserved or disaggregated student populations with no suppressed data. When ODE reports graduation data, some data is suppressed because we don't reach a threshold in terms of students within that population. But in the reported data, we saw growth in 8 out of 10 categories. I just want to pause for a second. 8 out of 10 categories. That's an amazing for any school district in the state of Oregon. Out of the 5 largest districts in the state, we had the highest grad rate for students who identify as migrants. Second highest grad rate for those 4 bullet points. Just kind of follow along as I read these because it's really powerful. Students experiencing disabilities, students who identify as Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, students who are English learners, students who identify as Black African American African, and this was our highest area in graph in the district as I highlighted in the previous graph. Students who identify as Asian or multiracial experienced a decrease. We did see that last year in the population, in the data sets. And then students experiencing homelessness also experienced a decrease. Successes here are amazing to highlight and what we're doing as a district. And going back to those partnerships of where we're working with different community partners is highlighted here because this isn't about a number on this slide, it's about the individual student. So the individual student meeting the requirements to graduate high school.
That'd be something you have off the top of your head or one of you have on top of it, but of those 5, are we the highest percentage of migrant population?
I don't know.
I don't know off the top of our head.
If not, it's close.
It's close. I can get you that. I wouldn't want to. With the big 5, Portland Public, Salem Kaiser, Clackamas, us, and Beaverton. Those are what
I'd say Salem Kaiser.
Right now, who do you want to know?
We've got 94 migrant net.
I don't know.
You had 94 migrant students in class of 23. Who do you want me to check?
I'm not talking about raw numbers, but we got to be close to the highest population of migrant students percent-wise. Maybe Beaverton may have more than us, but
Actually, I think Salem.
I would say Salem Kaiser.
Salem Kaiser,
not much higher percentage, but raw numbers are probably both higher than us.
Is a population.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Salem Kaiser is right.
Students, right?
Yeah. It's a great question. I'm going on to the next
Salem
one.
Kaiser there?
Look at Salem. North Clackamas, for their data suppressed, that they didn't have enough to even say it. So good call there. Let's check Salem Kaiser. Salem Kaiser migrant 160, and we had 94. And they're twice our size, so
Higher percentage.
percentage-wise, yeah, higher for us.
Great.
Good question. So in the identification, is that a one and done thing? In other words, does that change from year to year? Do students change their identification? Maybe they said, you know, they were African or African American at one point, and then they said, no, I'm biracial, I want to capture both, or does that change?
That can change. Students have opportunities and families have opportunities to update their information in Synergy. So theoretically, it could change. We haven't seen massive amounts of changes in that, but it can. What we have been seeing, though, in general across our state is the increase of multiracial being a category, just because I think students identify with both or three parts, you know, yeah. So we are seeing that just in general as an increase.
Right, but I was wondering how that impacted the numbers from year over year. Are we talking apples and apples, or are we talking apple, orange, or bananas?
Yeah, we're talking apples to apples, but maybe different varieties of apples. And the reason for that is I think multiracial is a great example. Families can choose to change definers. We're also using federal definitions, which also puts families in a little bit of a box of what they're going to choose. Most families, when they come in to identify and self-identify, they stay with that same definition. And as Audrey said, multiracial is the one that shifts, and it's shifting up. So,
not because of a change, but because of enrollment.
Right.
Yeah, because of enrollment. Yeah.
The mention of that category made me think of that.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, that is a very good question. I'm going to go to the looking forward slide here because there's some pieces on here I just want us to be thoughtful about as we move forward. You know, we often say that pandemic is behind us, and that's from an adult lens. But most of our current students in high school experienced the pandemic during their junior high years, their middle school years. And so those formative years were spent in interrupted, online, hybrid learning environments. And as we all know, those 7th and 8th grade years are formative years moving forward. So if you look at our current sophomores and our current juniors, that 8th grade distance learning year and then the 7th grade distance learning year are really important. And our sophomores had the 6th grade year as their closure year. So as we move through the system, remembering that our learners have been learning in a different cycle than how we define it from an adult lens. And I think it's really important for us to realize that the work we're doing in schools is not only keeping students at grade level with on grade level learning targets, but also supporting students coming through the system.
I like the way you broke this out because it does reflect my memory of my mental giant as he walked across the stage this year. And you're right, it was 8th grade that everything went, and we thought, oh my God, what's happening?
I think what was helpful for me when talking to David, he goes, our juniors and sophomores were basically like elementary students coming to high school. And that was a good, like, oh my goodness, we have middle school for a reason, and it's a great transition as we move into high school, and it kind of gets you ready for that shift in how learning happens and periods and different teachers and all of those things. And they did not have the same experience in those grade levels. And we do feel that still, and we're working and supporting and doing all the things that we need to do. But it was a good reminder to me, like, oh goodness, yeah, could you imagine a 6th grader just hopping into high school? That could be exciting.
And that's what happened.
And that's
so, awesome. Back to Audrey.
All right. Next slide. This is, again, just continuing to look forward. And as a reminder, for our 9th graders, this is our class of 2027. And I kind of put some data in there for you to see over time, our 9th graders. It has ebbed and flowed for sure. And we are working to improve this data. A reminder, though, for a 9th grader to be on track, they need 6 of their 8 credits to have passed their, and at least 3.5 of those credits need to have happened in core classes. So again, reminder, that's a higher expectation than ODE. And when Brooke and Beth talk about our strategic plan data, we show that in a graph where our expectations versus ODE's expectations around that too. Our preliminary data right now for the class of 2027, based on the semester grades that just occurred, is that we have about 13.29% of our 9th graders that are currently off track. and we are doing some work to support them to get them back on the track. This is our midpoint. We do usually see a little increase by the end of the year overall because we are just halfway through. They only needed to complete 4 credits at this time. So we do see a little uptick in that, and we're trying to hopefully hold to that as closely as we can as we get to the end of the school year. We pop to the next slide. This just gives you a little information. This is our current group of 10th graders, so the class of 2026. Currently, about 21% of them are off track, and again, with the higher expectation for HSC around 4 credits. Eric, can you pop backwards really fast? At the end of their 9th grade year, about 23% of them were off track. We were able to pick up some of them joined us in summer school, and some of them were doing some academic options. We were doing some different things to try to catch, so we did catch about 2%. Please know that summer school, though, was really highly focused on our juniors and seniors to make sure that they were getting what they needed for their to graduate and to be ready to graduate. Okay, if you can box forward. So that's 10th grade. One more slide. Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So these coming slides, the 10th, 11th, they include the semester, the preliminary semester?
They include the entire year. This is how, so if you go back to 10th grade. Sarah, thank you. Thanks. I needed the clicker, didn't I? I'm so sorry. Back forth. This is how they came in at the start of September of 2023 to us. Yep. And so, so now it's possible they could be doing some work right now through some work with teachers or through academic options. So this number may look different as we get to the end of the year. Great question. Hop to the next one. This is our current 11th graders, so the class of 2025. They are also sitting at about 21% off track. And then, yes, of course.
I think the answer is this doesn't include the semester grades the kids just got.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, because I said the start of 2022. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. And then right now, this is our current group of 12th graders. So we are sitting at about 24% of them are currently off track at the start of the school year based on the data. It does not include the semester. I think what is important to note, one of the things that I did look back, 24% is not great. I don't feel good about it. Neither does David. We want to make improvements. But I also looked back, and the class that just graduated, our current class of 2023, we had 32% of them off track. So we are making an impact in the work that we're doing. Is it as much as we want it to be? No, but we are definitely making an impact because this group actually came into their senior year better than our last group came into their senior year. So we feel really good about the investments that we've made around summer school, what I talked about with our Pathway Center and Oak Street campus, that we are really trying to get these students what they need to graduate on time with their class. And again, if they don't, we'll find them in their 5th year, we'll find them in their 6th year, and we'll keep working forward.
And these seniors went home spring break 8th grade.
These seniors went home spring break of 8th grade, yes, they did. And I think probably every year for the next couple of years, you will always get that first slide that lets you know of their pathway in school, because I think it gives context to what they experienced, which has an impact. Again, I think like David said, the pandemic is behind us, but it is not lost on us, right?
I think it's good that we don't forget what happened. I've said this to many people that we keep acting like it's over. And it's not. The kids are still feeling. They're still reeling. They're still evolving from that trauma. And then we forget that parents are still doing the same thing as they are. So I like the way this looks. It's not perfection, but we are a school district that is very awkwardly funded. So we're not going to get perfection.
But we're going to try hard, Nancy, to get that, just so you know.
I know.
All right, we can pop to the next slide. I think, again, just looking ahead in this year, the work that we're doing for the class of 2024, again, we continue to have our Pathway Center. We have our evening program that still exists over there that we are supporting. One of the great things that David is currently leading, and we were trying to find a great way to say this, but just a real think tank around Hillsboro Online Academy. We have seen a huge increase in our students that are choosing to go there for a variety of reasons. Some because they're doing some sort of sport and they're needing to have that, but we also have students that do not feel safe in a comprehensive high school for anxiety reasons, health reasons, all of those pieces, and we need to rethink how we serve students in that online setting. It's not always the ideal setting, but it's what helps them feel safe. We need to figure out how to connect them better in that setting, and so he's doing a great job of some work around leading around what that could look like.
It's a much lower graduation rate.
Yes, it is. And there's layers to that for our students that we serve there that we need to address. Like I talked about, just multiple ways to earn credit at the high school. We have been supporting academic options at all 4 of our comprehensive high schools, as well as the evening program that I mentioned. We have been really working on track data to really get back. We have met 3 times already with the team for 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th grade to look at the data and really know who the students are that are on track versus off track. We continue to use Access at the high school as well to help students make up things that they may be missing. And again, our continued work around just increasing our CTE course opportunities because we know that has such an impact on graduation. And summer school, we will still invest in a pretty large-scale summer school this summer for sure. Funding exists. We're hoping additional funding will come from the state. That would be great. But we are planning for a very robust summer school once again because, again, sometimes kids can learn something in 18 weeks. Sometimes they need 22 weeks to learn it, and that is okay too.
You may not know, but does Representative McLean's summer learning bill this session have a immediate emergency clause? Like, would it go into effect immediately, or is it a first of the year kind of? Anybody have any idea?
I don't know when the start date is.
Don't know. No. We just know they've been talking about it.
Representative McLean does have a summer learning bill introduced as one of her 2 bills for this session. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't know the details.
I haven't tracked it enough. I'm gonna.
What's the percentage of the March?
I don't know whether or not that bill will pass or what kind of. Yeah.
If it has like a support from the legislature, the governor, and everybody else,
We'll definitely know that by the end of, by March session 11, yeah.
More lead time than we got a couple of years ago.
That is true.
A few years ago, we found out in May. That was, that was a little bit tougher.
Our strategy in HST is to hold money back. Assuming we don't get anything, we'll do our current strategy. Because we know we have to do it. Like, on behalf of kids, we got to figure out how to do it. It's a matter of the legislature.
And Brooke and her team have already started our summer school planning. So we are not waiting, we are planning. The next slide is just questions for either David or myself. Great. I really love the cap decoration.
And that is my favorite thing.
It is pretty impressive.
Literally my favorite thing. All right, thank you much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for the report. Our next agenda item is a report on our ESSER monitoring.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Go ahead and kind of set the context for this and then introduce Christy Boyer from colleagues from the business office. So, as you know, we talk every year about ESSER funding and part of how it's integrated into our annual budget process. We, initially with the ESSER funding, we developed an accelerated learning plan in response to the pandemic. And we intentionally had a 3-year plan so that we could make those dollars last as long and be as effective as we could. And so we have been selected, and Christy will explain more about this, for a monitoring process by the Oregon Department of Education, and they have criteria for that. And we just wanted to bring that forward and share it here. It's kind of a pride point because it was such an unusual source of funding and a tremendous lift. And Christy was generous enough with her time to join us tonight to kind of share what the report was about. So Christy Woodard, Fiscal Planning Specialist in the Business Office.
Hey, hey, Christy. Thank you. I just would like to say thank you for the opportunity to present to the board before, so my voice is a little shaky, that's why. So thank you for the opportunity, really appreciate it. Yes, I was involved with all of the ESSER funds, and it was a big lift, and so we are definitely proud of this monitoring report that we got. Next slide. So basically the purpose of the ESSER funds, we want to show you what the purpose of those funds were, understand the federal objectives, share ODE's role, understand HSC's investment process, and then review highlights of the monitoring report. This is just a blurb from those ARPA funds that were given. So in 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act provided additional funding for schools, and those funds are, we refer to them sometimes as ESSER 3 funds. They're also known as ARPA funds because they're part of that American Rescue Plan Act. That was the ESSER 3 funds. They're available through September of 2024, so we are still utilizing those funds today and will continue to until September. The intention of the funds was to address the effects of lost instructional time on students' social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs. The Oregon Department of Ed, ODE, had, so 90% of the funds that were given to Oregon were to be allocated to school districts. 10% was a set aside held by ODE. So this is talking about their set aside, their 10% set aside. Of the 10% set aside, Hillsboro School District directly benefited from grants under the Grow Your Own and bilingual teacher pathway programs and the Jumpstart Kindergarten program. We indirectly received support from ODE under some of those other programs listed. So ODE's role for us in monitoring included technical assistance. So there was a lot of guidance and support that we received from ODE, integrating our plan, coming up with our plan, how we were going to spend money, and creating an integrated planning tool, sometimes known as IPT. So if you look on our website, it is public information on our district website as well as ODE's website. You can see the integrated planning tool for all of the districts. The compliance piece was what kind of we're talking about now. We went through a monitoring process to review our ESSER spending and had to comply with different guidance, which we'll go through in a little bit. Fund administration, the ODE had a grant administration, so there's a grant agreement. They administered the grant, they allocated the funds, they distributed the funds on a reimbursement basis, so that was their fund administration part of it. Maintenance of equity was a newer term that we had to address during our ESSER funding, and that was intended to ensure that districts do not reduce state and local financial support for education, specifically for high need and highest poverty schools. So there were some parameters around that spending. Capital expenditure, so we submitted a capital expenditure, anything over $5,000 was, we submitted to ODE to get approval on those expenditures, and that was part of their process in these ARPA funds, was reviewing those, approving those, and monitoring the expenditure of those capital expenses. Some of the highlights for what we used ESSER funding were a nutrition services freezer project, which helped us to have adequate food levels in light of supply chain challenges that we experienced during and right after the pandemic. Another one was we did middle school tents, and those tents were not just your basic tent, cheap, go buy it at Walmart. They were nice tents that are sustainable. The schools still have them, and it allowed middle school students to be able to have lunch, maintain social distancing, and not interrupt their schedules. So that was those are a couple of the highlights of what we used our capital expenditures for. Like I mentioned, the ODE site and our website have our public information on our IPT, our integrated planning tool, how we've spent the funds, our agreements, all of that is public information. Review of our investment process. So Michelle talked about this a little bit. We had that accelerated planning tool that we used as a district to determine how we were going to spend the resources that we had available to us. So the highlighted amounts here are what we planned for ESSER spending within those years. The investment process is part of our regular budget process, just another source of funding for our regular annual budget process. There was ongoing collaboration with key stakeholders to ensure the best use of financial resources. And it was continually reviewed and updated based on needs. You can see here the ESSER dollars that we were allocated. So great question. ESSER 1 was the initial ESSER allocation that we received. ESSER 2 was the second allocation that we received, and ESSER 3, which was the ARPA funds under the American Rescue Plan, those are the ones that we were specifically monitored on during this monitoring visit.
And we got almost 50.
Over a 3.5-year period. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just one shot deal, yeah.
So as part of the monitoring, Michelle and I met with a representative from ODE and talked about what they were going to be looking for, what compliance, and we'll look at the compliance table in a moment, what they were going to be looking for. We met with them, and then they came back and asked us for some additional documentation, which we submitted to ODE. I'd like a shout out to Technology Services and Facilities for their contribution to some requested documents that we had to provide. They were great and helped us come up with those documents to submit to ODE. Go ahead.
Did each school district get a proportional amount of ESSER?
Great question. The proportion that districts got was based on their Title I allocation. So we get a specific Title I allocation from ODE. The same method of calculating that dollar amount was used for the ESSER allocation. This is a table of everything that we had and everything that ODE reviewed in our compliance monitoring. You will see that Table 6 has reviewed on a later date, and I just wanted to point out that per ODE, that's the General Education Provisions Act, and compliance with that will be addressed through a Year 3 data submission, which we expect to receive soon. It's initiated in the spring of 2024, so we'll be looking forward to that and showing compliance on that section. These are the sections that we reviewed with the ODE team. This is a quote from our monitoring report, and I think it just shows that HSD continues to prove that we are responsive to student needs and are good stewards of our financial resources. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
I just have another thing to add quickly, that this is on top of all of the other auditing and testing that we do with the district for federal programs. And there were requirements for the ESSER funds that were not made clear exactly up front. Maintenance of equity was the one that we were like, there was no clear path to determine how to plan for that. So we really put faith in the district's process for integrated guidance and soliciting feedback from everyone in our system to try to make sure that these expenditures are in line with what is best for our students. So kudos to Chrissy and the rest of the folks that work on the details of our financial reporting.
we're proud of that.
Comments? I very much appreciate how we were strategically understanding that this was not going to be a one-time expenditure in 2022, that we balanced the spending of our funds out for as long of a duration as we possibly could to help kind of mitigate the impact for as long as we could. So I very much, I've always, I think I brought it up before, but I appreciate the work that your department has done trying to help us prepare for the long, just talked about a second ago, for the long tail of COVID impact.
That note, the one thing that I did leave out that we had talked about was the reason we were selected, which actually, Mark, you speak to that. So the reason we were selected for monitoring was because our percentage of reimbursement requests for our ESSER funds were low. So basically, the way ODE looked at it was, you haven't spent the money, why haven't you spent the money? We need to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to with the money. That's why we were selected for monitoring. We knew that we were intentional about that, and so it wasn't a surprise to us that using that criteria, that was one of many criteria, but using that criteria, we were selected for monitoring, so I thought I would share that.
And two, I don't want to emphasize a little bit of what Michelle was saying about the community engagement process that got us here. There's like this long arc of community engagement that I think started with Measure 98 and SIA. And as soon as SIA was done, we were doing an operational blueprint for how to get through COVID together. And so in each one of those, I mean, this is like triggering memories that I haven't thought about in a while. We had parents, teachers, we had reps from HEA and HCU, Melody and Jill were on those teams. We had family engagements, we had open houses, and so I think a theme through all this that kind of culminates with integrated guidance work, rounds of engagement, input, and then verification. Like, is this still what you need? When you said last time behavior supports and mental health supports, is that still a need for your family? Yes, it is, and here's what it looks like now. And so I'm just really proud of that culture that we built. I think the new integrated guidance requirements from ODE fall in line with stuff that we were doing through all those different eras that sort of overlapped. So I think it'll serve us well into the future too, and it makes me proud that we get that feedback from how we attach our money to our input structures with raising voices in the community. So thank you. Great job, Chris.
And actually, the ESSER 3 was just one component of ARPA, right? So I do think tangentially our electric buses, at least one of them, is was a benefactor of the ARPA program as well through our state legislature representatives.
Correct. These are just the ODE funds that were received. There were county, state, and other funds that were also allocated under ARPA. So yes, this was just specifically the education funds that were through ODE to us.
I believe that's it for our agenda tonight. So we're just at discussion time. Beth? Start with Aliana. Anything you would like to share tonight?
Not really anything to share, but more of like a thoughts and appreciation. I think from just listening to the pack that came in and looking at, you know, the increase in graduation rates for all those different groups we saw, it's really reassuring as students to know that HSC is a district that doesn't just preach, but actually shows what they say when it comes to equity and helping all students achieve success. Because a lot of institutions and districts will talk about that for students, like equity, success, equal opportunities, or other pathways, but there's really nothing to show for it. So it's just like a thank you, I guess, to HSC from students.
Anything you'd like to share tonight?
Yeah, I just had a couple of notes. I wanted to let the board know that we had 90 families show up for a special education family venue with Dr. Rick Robinson, who hosted a session on self-regulation. And so that was a venue that our student services folks put together to serve families of kids who are receiving special education services. And Rick has been a big leader for us in learning, just about social emotional learning and how to help with behavioral health and mental health for many years in HSE. We also had over 100 families come to our Lunar New Year celebration, which was led by several of our administrators, a couple of them here, like Francesca and Kana. Adria. And was a very diverse group of community members to celebrate Lunar New Year. And we had, Monique actually asked me, where did Kathy go? And I was remiss in not telling the school board that Kathy Wilson retired effective at the beginning of this month and is staying on to support our new executive assistant for Audrey and myself and our school board and our office managers. Running the school district will be Ivana Garcia Prado, who we had a committee of people select. She served as office manager at Butterman in Orenco. She was also a counseling secretary at Evergreen Middle School, so has experience with administrative assistant type work. She'll be great. Kathy's also helping the transition of at Orenco for the new office manager there, so she's still around. She'll be helping us forever. If you want to send her a card, or if the board would like to do something like sign a card together to congratulate Kathy, that would be appropriate at any time. Because she's failing to retire so far, you've got plenty of time to celebrate her. So thanks, Monique, for that. And I apologize again for not letting you all know that was happening. Thanks for a good meeting. That's it.
All right, board time. Patrick, do you have anything you would like to share tonight?
Not too much. Thank you for all the presentations today, and wishing the best of luck to the team that's been working on the Hillsboro Schools Foundation Gala that's coming up. I'll be traveling on the East Coast, and so I won't be able to be there, but I know what a great event it is every year, so I'm looking forward to seeing their success at that.
Thank you. Sheehan, anything you'd like to share tonight?
Nope, nothing from me. Just appreciate all the presentations today. Thank you.
Anything to share tonight?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Nancy, anything to share tonight?
Oh, thank you.
All right. Do that?
Thank you for all the presentations and all of your hard work.
Yeah, a lot of work goes into this before you guys even get to the room, so thanks for doing that. Looking forward to high school play season starting up. It was in hot news. Do we know if RJ's in one?
He is in Matilda.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so he's in Matilda. All right.
So Mark,
I have to rearrange my,
pick a date from the
maybe rearrange some of my schedule then. Okay. And yes, looking forward to the Hillsboro School Foundation auction. If you haven't signed up, there's still time. Beth can coordinate that.
And we want any tickets purchased no later than Thursday.
So get on it.
Last minute activity, please let me know as soon as possible.
So if you want to join us at the gala, I have yet to be told what I'm wearing, which is unusual for this time of year. I should already.
Northern lights, like blues and greens and sparklies.
Looks like the jacket I wore last year, but then I can wear the same jacket twice.
I think you can.
Yeah.
Because when are you going to wear that jacket again?
I haven't.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So maybe it is the same one. Oh, that's tacky. All right.
I don't think so.
Red carpet. Yes, looking forward to the event as I do every year, and I hope to see as many of you there as are able to attend. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.